Proviamo a ripartire con la
Let's
nostra...
start again with our session about energy communities. Before giving the floor to Mr. Claudio Maltoni, Director of FMI, I would like to thank once again all the guests that have spoken today and that gave us their opinions about all these important topics. I took notes about the important topics that we talked about in the morning. In all the presentations of our speakers, there were some keywords that lead to a very important topic, that is to say, collaboration, implementing public strategies and public policies, cooperation, participation, and today's conference is called Energy Communities. So community is a very old term, we all know it, but there was a very important German intellectual, Tonier, that at the end of the 19th century wrote an important text. So this important intellectual said that community is a way to organize social life, and it is important to take into consideration the idea of trust, the ability to share with other people life in an empathic way, with trust. And I think that the word community is very important today. Gesellschaft is society in German. Society was a social organization based on mechanic and social exchange, whereas community was based on the ability to understand that other people were like you. So everyone had to live and grow up together. These concepts and ideas were typical of the pre-industrial era, but these are also current themes. And the other term I wanted to highlight is power, energy. And that's the fundamental topic, the keyword of today. You talked about very important good practices and best practices that you implemented in your municipalities and cities. So the core is the ability to get together for a common objective, that is to say, consuming and producing with a certain balance. Energy communities have always existed. Le Goff, a French intellectual, described energy communities where there is balance, a balance between consumption and production. Modernity taught us that there is a new term that was invented in the 1970s, that is to say, prosumer, consumer and producer at the same time. So I think energy communities are a great challenge for the future and for today as well. They represent a utopian idea for now, but this utopian idea can become a utopian idea, so an idea based on good life. FMI wants to continue with this process, and we believe that this is the key for the future. And in particular, in this period, we have the possibility to make a good impact. Some people say that there are no other roads, and this is the last road to invent a new way to live with sustainable energies. But I believe that the challenge is ahead of us, and what you talked about today show that we can find possible solutions for the future, and we really hope that there will be further developments in the future. So I would like to thank you once again for your presentations and for the work and the efforts that you have made so far. I think the whole world needs these best practices and needs people that, with a lot of courage, can find new solutions for the future. So I'll now leave the floor to Mr. Claudio Maltoni, who is the General Director of FMI. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Can you hear me well? I would like to thank you all very much for the contribution that you brought this morning. We are all trying to give our contribution to these projects. My presentation is quite short, where I would like to talk about the main elements that could be useful as a stimulating point for, well, to analyze what we have done so far and what we want to do in the future together. FMI, it's an in-house society of 15 municipalities of the Forlì area and region. We deal with different topics and aspects. They are linked to each other. First of all, sustainable mobility, that's where we started. And then energy, technological innovation, and that's why we're here today. Technological innovation and safety. And then sustainable infrastructure. We're a group of professionals, and many of us are here today, so I'd like to thank all my colleagues. We support municipalities to achieve their goals, to create better, more sustainable cities. That's our mission. Here you can see the goals of the 2030 agenda that are in line with our goals. I'll be very brief here because Mr. Foca this morning has already talked about intervention on certain buildings. The intervention he talked about is about to finish. These are two schools that, and we did some works thanks to some regional funding, and we need to activate the thermal account project thanks to GSE. It is a complex process, but we're all very active in this. We come into contact with children and we explain to them that these new buildings are more efficient and they consume less energy, so with a series of advantages for their future and our future. This is a project that we did in the past that opened new possibilities for other projects. We took part in the ENES-CE project, but this is SOS for Life project. We have just finished this project. It finished a couple of months ago, together with architect Ferrarini and the municipality of Forlì. Dario Camporesi was the director of the works. He's here with us today. It's a very important project. On the left, you can see the state of the art. So concrete for parking. And then on the left is the de-sealing project. So we managed to give the city a green area to use. Furthermore, we managed to create some guidelines to design buildings in this direction. So we defined certain kinds of parking lots that are waterproof. So all these works must be careful when designing the parking lots, because it is important to take into account the characteristics of the territory. We made some analysis on the soil, and we carried out a lot of studies to make the best intervention possible. This is a new parking lot. Maybe you can't see it. I'm just trying to show you a video. This is the new parking lot. We tried to take into account different aspects related to environmental sustainability, for example, the vegetation, waterproof floor, charging stations, and a particular attention to environmental aspects, because we're in the city center. So ensuring the sustainability of the project. Each project must be contextualized. So we try to take into account all the different aspects. There is a new way to design projects today, and we try to apply this to this parking lot. So you can see the video, and the images are quicker than my words. But we wanted to show you the video because it is more important to show the results of what we want to realize. Sustainability is certainly one of the key factors that we took into consideration, together with beauty. There was another building in this area, and it was a furnace. We also created some particular events for the city, and after we will finish the project, we will also create some photo displays to show the future events that will be taken, that will take place in this area. So it's night, and I can move on to the following part of my presentation. The slides move even if I don't touch them. Okay, so now we're ready. This is a very important project that we did with a partner from Modena. It's a project that has just started, so we need to develop it. And the objective is to stimulate through a technical support. We want to give a technical contribution for energy redevelopment of blocks of flats. Public societies can support this project for blocks of flats to show the importance of energy efficiency. It's a very important aspect, and I'd like to highlight that the objective of the municipality of Forlì, but also the objective of FMI, is to promote investments on the region, on the area. We're a technical society, so we want to promote also the economic development. So we want to involve professionals that are the pillar of these projects in order to carry out important actions and investments. So on the website called Top Condomini, you can see that it is now possible to apply for this project. Forlì has a hub for the Romagna area, and Modena as another hub for the Emilia region. But the list is just one. So those who are willing to apply can actually subscribe, and then we will make an analysis of technical skills, and we will select the professionals that are fundamental. We deal with blocks of flats with more than 15 housing units. So this is a very important project because blocks of flats have faced some difficulties, even if there was the 110% bonus or tax incentive from Italy. So in my opinion, it is important to evaluate the impact of blocks of flats on energy efficiency, and we need to tackle this problem as well. This is another project from the municipality of Forlì, and we had a dialogue with other municipalities as well. We are going through the first stages of the project, but it was, in my opinion, important to talk about this project also during this day. It is a territorial mapping for positive energy projects. It is important to have a map of the territory. It sounds simple, but it's not. We need to find spaces to install photovoltaic panels. They can be installed in private areas, but also in public areas. Obviously, municipalities will play a pivotal role in this as far as the city planning aspects are concerned. So we are sharing this work with the department of the municipality dealing with city planning. And obviously, there are also many economic aspects involved. And here I would like to show you another video. The municipality saw an area, the parking lot of the Morgagni Hospital in Forlì. It's all made in concrete, so we thought of this solution. We can certainly improve the environmental impact of this area, and we can also create some shade for the people who go to the hospital. The external frame was thought of as an area with a lot of green and with a lot of trees, but without making shade and covering the solar panels, of course. We can certainly have a discussion also with the local health authority. And I think this could be an important project because it could also provide a lot of energy to the city. Let's move on to another project, energy communities. That's also the title of our conference today. It's a topic that we want to analyze very carefully. We're having dialogues with other societies and realities that are similar to our reality. And as Mr. Donati said, these projects are very important from a social point of view, but also from an economic point of view, especially today. Here you can see two images. The first one is the solar field. With our European guests, we visited this field. It's now ongoing, and I also put an image of a company that is near the field. It's a new building, NZEB. Villa Selva is a productive area that is equipped with a functioning solar field. It's also a very important area for the freight transport for companies, and transport are sustainable there. So I think this could be a very good example of energy, of industrial energy communities. I think there are the right conditions to create this community. So I wanted to close my presentation with this particular project, this particular possibility that can be very interesting for us. Creating energy communities in the companies is obviously pivotal, but also working with houses is fundamental. But we're going through an energy crisis at the moment, so being able to be sustainable and being able to produce electricity and share this resource is obviously fundamental today. It's an opportunity that we need to seize, and we must all work in this direction. So thank you very much. Thank you for your attention, and I would also like to thank all our guests. Thank you very much.
Grazie Claudio. Adesso come da programma.
Thank you very much, Claudio. And now, next on the agenda is our keynote speaker from Germany, Andreas Hirschmann. If you can please come on stage.
Good afternoon, everybody. Is this microphone working? Or yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Well, citizens' energy. Examples of active energy communities in Germany. That's the subject that we will talk about the next 20 minutes. My name is Helmut Mutig, and it's my pleasure to give this half portion of this presentation, and I'm very proud, and it's a big honor for me to share this presentation with Mr. Renewable Energy from Pfaffenhofen, Andreas Hirschmann. Well, next slide, please. Okay, no, der untere. Okay, kriegen wir. Grazie. What I would like to say here is that the community of Pfaffenhofen that is involved in renewable energy and climate change, we are no new kids on the block. We are involved in that subject since decades, I would say. And the reason to say that is that maybe you are aware of the famous European baby food producer, HIP company. Maybe not. But HIP is located in Pfaffenhofen and is producing their products there. And they started to work biological and to use biological vegetables and lettuces and things like that since when I was a little boy, and that means in the 1960s or whatever. So they already started to work on that. But it was more privatized and more organized, I would say, at the turning of the century. And Pfaffenhofen was the first community in the area that, due to the fact that we had built a biomass power plant, we were able to produce electricity and heat on an ecological way by renewable energies, by wood and wood products. And due to that fact, we already fulfilled the Kyoto Protocol in 2001. So these are very famous starting points. The first civic solar power plant, similar to those that we have seen already, was built in Bavaria in 2002 already. Don't be afraid, I will not cite all of this text. This is for you to read. One famous milestone is that the Energy and Solar Association, the ESV, was established in 2008. And that, on the other hand, the Citizen Energy Cooperative, the BEG, that we are representing today, was established in 2012. These were the keystones to start with that kind of ideas in a professional way. Following that situation, we started in 2012 also with the contribution of the citizens, the interested ones, of course, the interested citizens. We started to establish the first integrated climate protection concept, the first CCAP, and it was approved in 2013. We have now, and you will see it later, we have now the second generation of that CCAP. Also, full-time climate protection manager was established. Not so important, but in 2015, the first citizen wind turbine owned by our cooperative was set into operation. And you see, now this way to it, and you see here, this is, yeah, that's the first wind turbine. Not so important. Very important was this one. This milestone, according to my interpretation, is a very famous one. The citizens of Pfaffenhofen was able to rebuy the complete local electricity and gas distribution grid that was usually owned by the big electricity companies and the big gas companies, and as they were able to sell it because the license was running out, and the city was able to buy it back, and now it is under control of our own. This was really a famous milestone, I would say. The next famous one is that we would not stick with the one single wind turbine, but we were planning to establish a complete wind farm with 2 up to 5 or 3 up to 5 wind turbines. And this is not so easy, as you mentioned. When you come up with that idea, there is always a lot of resistance. Well, you must expect resistance from people and from institutions that are not happy with your plan. And we were forced, it was a common decision that we would follow a plan to have a public decision on this wind farm. There was a public, I would not say election, so this was a real decision, and in 2016, and Andreas will tell you later on the percentage and outcome of the decision, and we had the go ahead, established this wind park, and this is now on the way. In 2017, these SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals that also we heard before, had been adopted by the Pfaffenhofen representatives. details like plastic-free starting of organic farming and things like that are also to be mentioned. Another famous milestone where we were the front runners, I think, within Germany. I'm not quite sure, maybe there was one other commission. We offered free city bus to our citizens. So they are able to take and use the local bus connections to go from A to B, and they don't have to pay anything for that. That's completely free. It's not only a question that we have to face the climate change, but we have to think about the consequences of the climate change and to adopt and to prepare how we will deal with the climatic change, which is a fact now and not something potential danger in the future. So we have to adopt and to define measures how we can mitigate the consequences and how to make our city fit for future to cope with the situation that we will find with climate change. This was in starting in 2020. We started this process also together with public people, and they were involved in that decision makings and in that creation of ideas. And as I mentioned before, the climate plan second generation was adopted last year. The climate plan, which now goes until 2035, and it has a clear goal. And this is also it is a strategic and engaged goal, and that says Pfaffenhofen wants to end up with 0 emissions in 2035. No more fossil energy, no more carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. On the balance, we want to be carbon-free in 2035. Okay, now this was a short review on the history, and now let's say a personal summary of an old man that you see in front of you. What have been, according to my extent, I must emphasize that this does not fit to each and every other community one-to-one. This is our master plan, and this was the plan how we did it and how we have been successful. And this is why I wanted to show you how it was. But again, this need not fit to each and every one of you. Be careful. So what we adopted was, and this is now really an experience over the last 2 decades, that we consider these aspects as very important and should not be forgotten and should be taken into account very carefully. Number 1, awareness raising. We are still discussing, is this still necessary in the year 2022? This was 2 decades from now. We have, of course, to make the people aware of, well, there will be global warming, there will be a climate change. And they said, easy, then it's warmer in Germany, and then it's easier for holiday, we don't have to travel to Italy maybe. This kind of awareness was not taken serious. The danger was not taken serious at the beginning. Today we discussed it at lunch. Is it necessary to work on awareness rising again or not? It is a never-ending story. You always have, there's new generation of pupils are growing up, and we have to teach them and make them conscious of what is going on, and how can you, with your personal behavior, work on this, and how can you bring your energy, your engagement into public organizations and to work to improve the situation. So awareness rising is still a very important point. That's my personal conclusion out of that. Public involvement from the very beginning. Of course, you cannot decide with some specialist experts back in your home office and say, oh, this is our master plan and this is how we want to implement it from next years on. And then you don't have to wonder that people say, oh no, this is not what I wanted. I wanted something else. So go into the discussion with the public as early as possible. Make them partners. Try to integrate them into and explain to them what you are planning. Explain it, explain to them the advantages and possible disadvantages. Be honest. That's my message. Be honest. Don't try to trick them. They will anyway, they will come out of and they will blame you afterwards. From the way how we do it is, of course, it is necessary to have a stringent target definition. Tell them what is the plan. This is what we did in the first CCAF. We said, we want to reduce the personal CO2 emission per capita, per person, from 6 tons, which is very ambitious in Germany, to 3 tons to 2030. This was a clear definition. And then, don't forget, after the target definition, also to supply an implementation plan. You say, here we are today, this is where I want to be in 10 years or 15 years or whatever, and these are the steps that we see how we can follow this strategy. And this has to be transparent and easily understandable, not 30 pages of an expertise book, easy. Visualize what your ideas are, visualize where the threats are, and publish this kind of instrumentation that you have. Planning software, okay. Next step, very important also, in our situation, we have, from the discussions I heard, that it is not possible in each and every country because the legal situation is a different one. I am aware of that. In our case, we made the following experience. It was clear that once you deliver the opportunity for the people to invest and to be partner and winner, so to say, financial winner of a project, then the acceptance of this project will be higher automatically. And this is also something that some studies in Germany have shown, where when other communities try to do the same that we have done, when you take in and cooperate with public, and when you offer the possibility to invest, then the acceptance is automatically better. Consistent communication strategy throughout all phases. I think it is self-explaining because you have learned from my other explanation that it's always very important to have the public on your side, at your side. Okay. This is only 1 or 2 pictures, then I hand over to Andreas, and this is an example of awareness raising activities. What I want to say with that picture is we have to pick up people in their comfort zone. Take them, make them aware what it is, and this is where we have to start from. It could be that this is not comfortable for them anymore, that it is a little bit, well, not so funny. And sometimes you even have to shock them and to say, if we don't change our behavior, if we don't change the way we produce electricity and how we deal with our environment, is that what you want? That we end in a big drought or really in an arid area, or is that what you want? We are suffering in flood and drowning. Shock them if it's necessary. But never forget, and this is my last sentence, never forget, climate change and energy change is also something that can be funny. It's not so always serious. Make it also a funny and successful thing. So that's my key message, and it's now that I hand over to Andreas, and he will tell you another story. He will be the presenter now that tries to give you some example how he would deal with potential new members of our cooperative. So that's what I could present you. Thank you.
Yes, what I like to show you is how we present our cooperative to our citizens. So the first slide we show them, okay, energy runs out. Everybody knows energy prices rises. But our philosophy is not that offshore wind parks can save us in Germany. We need onshore wind parks because offshore makes, in consequence, more money for grids and something else. And so we say, our message is take the energy in your own hands, and what is the tool, what is the best tool for this? Energiewende, for the energy transition. This is the cooperative. The cooperative is flexible, so our members can resign after 5 years period, then they get their money back. It's safe, and at least it's regional. So the added value remains local. That's, I think, the most important thing that we talk or give to our citizens. It's a win for all. So our goals are the expansion of, we say now, peace energy, for energy independence. And now is the time we use for this message. Come on, the democratization of energy is very important. But the first thing, the peace energy, is now the most important thing. Other thing is decentralization of energy production, and at least the involving of local citizens. The cooperative is founded in 2012 out of association with energy and solar. And one of our goals in the ESV association was building citizens' power plants. But as an association, it doesn't work. So in 2012, we decided to found a cooperative and build these power plants with our citizens. And now, after 10 years, we have more than 1,000 members in our cooperative. And what we say to our members is, we think that you can't better invest your money as in our projects. And why? It's very easy, because you can invest with only 100 euro. You buy a share of the cooperative, and then you have the possibility to participate at the project with a subordinary loan. We start there from 1,000 euro, and then you can invest in whatever you like, a wind park or bioenergy or PV. You can choose, and you get the money back of your loan and the rate you see here. One of the most important things was our first wind turbine in Pfaffenhofen, and this is the power plant that makes us the most fun. So we invest there over 5 million euros, mostly with citizen loans and bank loans. And other projects, here you can see the exchange of the framework of ENES-CE last summer. And what we do else is tree planting, something people can see, okay, you can help for environmental things, for climate things. And our campaign is do something for my future. So we need children, as Helmut says, the pupils and the children are very important for us. And other very important things is the participation of all citizens is possible. So what is the difference between a cooperative and an investor? You see on the top is the cooperative. There is the participation that we can participate all of the citizens, not like an investor. You see the picture under. And the next is our campaign. We go out of the houses. We go on the marketplace and speak to people how important it is to do the energy transition. And yeah, and we found also a wind alliance that was very important. With this wind alliance, we have some well-known citizens show their yes, you see ja in Germany, yes for the wind turbines. So Mr. Hipp, or from all of the peoples, the old mayor from Pfaffenhofen, or a brewery chief, or the monk help us to get the awareness for green energy. And now I like to show you a very short video to see how we give the message to our citizens. I hope it works.
Nachhaltigkeit ist unsere Tradition.
Sustainability is our
Vielfalt unserer
tradition.
Natur. Ein Reichtum, dessen Erhalt jede Anstrengung wert ist. Dafür arbeiten wir.
The
Seit
old days from
Generationen.
Pfaffenhofen.
Für ein nachhaltiges und gesundes Leben. Im Einklang mit der Natur. Für uns. Für unsere Kinder
For
und
our
Kindeskinder.
children.
Gemeinsam haben wir viel erreicht.
Together we reached a lot.
Und gemeinsam haben wir noch viel vor.
Pfaffenhofen schafft's.
And this was the message of the mayor. Pfaffenhofen can do this, so it's not impossible. And that was very important. This was a clip for the cinema, and that helps us that we get the referendum with around about 57, thank you, percent. So we won this referendum. Hopefully in 2023, the next 3 windmills can support the electrical power. And therefore, then we reach the target 100% clean electrical energy in Pfaffenhofen. And this is what, Helmut tells, easy target, easy goal. That picture we paint that everybody can understand why we do all these things. it's very easy. With an own grid of electricity, gas and heating grid and some renewable energy, we can solve this and get the 100% clean energy. And another very important thing is to cooperate, yeah, thank you. To cooperate with our municipality and all the citizens. And yeah, the electrical power we spend to our citizens. They can buy the electrical power. That's another thing that's very important. And what I can tell us about the other projects, we checked 64 projects after the last 10 years. And now we can supply with the project that realized 7,000 households with clean energy. And our next project is together with the Stadtwerke, our power to gas on the treatment plant, and hopefully at the end of the year the power to gas plant can start. So another important thing for us, and then I'm finished, is that nearly every second kilowatt hour in Bavaria and Germany comes from citizen power plants. So that was the reason why we decided in 2014 that we found an association that yeah, how should I say, bundles all of these interests for political things and energy in Bavaria. Yeah, I was vergessen. That is the name, Bürgerenergie Bayern e.V. That was the association we founded in 2014. Hammers, I was vergessen. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much for listening.
Grazie per la relazione.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Now, positive energy communities towards the 100% renewable city. Mr. Klaus, Mr. Whitman, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you very much. It's an honor to be able to speak here and also to be integrated into the ENES-CE project. My name is Sebastian Whitman, and I need a pointer. Here we go. And I will hold the presentation with my colleague from the municipal utilities in Pfaffenhofen, Robin Gersbeck. He will join me later. And we will present now another important actor in Pfaffenhofen. So you saw now the citizen cooperative as one big actor. And then there's another one, which is the municipal utilities in Pfaffenhofen. And just a very short agenda. We just will have a very short introduction about how this municipal utility was founded and why it was founded. And then we want to show you two best practices, or just, let's say, two innovative approaches to increase independency and renewable energy in Pfaffenhofen. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. So let's get into it. And first of all, many of you here already visited us, but just to get a very short glimpse where it is. you know, heard from Andreas and Helmut also a little bit about Pfaffenhofen. But yeah, we're placed right here in the north of Munich. And if you zoom in, yeah, you see north of Munich, and that's the municipal area. Just for the background, because I think it's kind of important what possibilities you have. Pfaffenhofen has about 26,000 inhabitants, and it's also important that the unemployment rate is very, very low, and the economy is quite good because we have a lot of industry, for example, HIP, but we also have automotive industry nearby. So it's, yeah, the unemployment rate is low and the economy is quite good. So that's, of course, makes it easier also to get funding and also to have projects. So in 2008, there was the so-called colorful coalition. That's when the mayor changed and also the political system in Pfaffenhofen changed and other parties got into the regional parliament. And that was a really big step because then the climate change was much higher on the agenda. So they realized, as Helmut showed you as well, probably we don't want to have that in Pfaffenhofen, and they thought about, okay, what can we do and what should we do? And of course, it's not like a single solution to it, but one solution they had in mind was a municipal company. So that when the idea of the municipal utilities was born. And therefore, in 2013, so quite young for municipal utilities, it was founded. So Stadtwerke means like, it's kind of difficult to translate really word by word, but it's more or less like a public company, so to say. So it's owned by the community and by the municipality. We started at the municipal utilities with only a few segments. So we had the parking garage, we had the cemetery, we had some kind of the cleaning and water system, and from that on, we were like, I think, so the next year will be a 10th anniversary, and we started in 2013 with roughly 60 employees, and now we are around like 240, more or less. So that was really a big growth there, and now we are doing nearly everything which is needed to live in Pfaffenhofen. So we have the mobility, we have the car sharing. We came exactly with that car to Italy, which was not a good idea. But nevertheless, we also have the free bus. We have, of course, we also sell electricity, we sell gas. We own, with some other companies, we own the electricity and the heating grid, the gas grid. So it's a very, very broad, wide range of products we have, more or less. We also have the bath. So it's really a lot of things to do. And the big question is why municipal utilities? Can't be there like just normal companies, private companies, or should the municipality do it on their own? So the question is, why do we need them, or do we need them? So there are some arguments for municipal utilities from our point of view, which is they are a little bit more flexible and have a higher responsiveness than municipalities, at least from our point of view. Probably it's different in your country, but we are a little bit faster, more flexible, and also do not have as strict regulations as the municipality has. Also, on the other side, there is a lower need or a lower return on investment needed than in private companies. So in private companies, it's more like, okay, we have to maximize our return. It has to be as high as possible. And with the background that we serve the citizens in Pfaffenhofen, we can, if we want and if the political will is there, also work with a lower ROI. Also, it's a very good vehicle for the remunicipalization, which is what Andreas also mentioned, that we bought back the grid. So now the grid is in our hands, and of course we are able to shape it more in the way we think we need it. Also, it's easier to focus on specific projects. Robin will tell you later on about a very special project which would probably be hard to realize in a municipality. From our point of view, there are several success factors, but just to point out a few of them, those are a very close collaboration, and we can't stress that often enough. That's what Andreas also said. It's very, very important that all the different actors work hand in hand. So we work with the citizen cooperative, we work with the municipality and different other local actors. Also, of course, you need at least some kind of political will and support. Without all of that, it's probably too hard, and the more you get, the better. So that was kind of good in Pfaffenhofen because the political will to change it was quite high. Also, the thing Helmut also mentioned is the common vision. You need a target, a vision where you're going to, and so that everybody's going in the same direction. It's very important as well. And one of the main factors, 100% renewable energy in Pfaffenhofen. The plan is to have the complete municipal area in 2035 on 100% renewables. And even earlier, in 2030, we want to achieve 100% in renewable electricity. The 3 wind turbines will be a very big factor towards it. And we're able to achieve the 100% electricity in Pfaffenhofen with the wind turbines. But nevertheless, with the growth of the mobility sector, especially of the electric mobility sector, the demand will be huge in 2030, 2035, and also 2040. So we're not finished by building the 3 wind turbines and that's it, and we have 100%. And what is also important, the numbers here shouldn't really matter for you because they are different in every community. But what's important is that you need a mix. You have to mix all the renewables which are possible in your area and then see what's the best fit for you. One point Robin will point out later is also the connection between sectors. Connecting heating, electricity, mobility, electricity, all that kind of stuff. That's the important thing in the future. And as I told you, or let's get to this before. So we said, okay, we want 100%. But then the question was, okay, where are we now actually? So we tried to get those data, or that data as well, and we created the energy monitor. Is that energy monitor? Yeah, I think so. So there you can see every day, every single day, and I think it's every quarter of an hour, it's renewed, it's updated. There you can see the current situation. And to be honest, up to now, it's not like 100% the real numbers, but it's also some kind of calculation behind. So there's some kind of real numbers and some are calculations, but we're trying to get more and more into the real numbers. But yeah, of course, like the little photovoltaic plants, you don't have like current numbers every quarter of an hour. But that's a good thing to show also all the citizens and the politicians and also everybody who's just passing through Pfaffenhofen what the current status is. And also, for example, when the 3 wind turbines are built, the numbers will be probably a little bit higher. And everybody can see it then. So that's really a point of the awareness raising. That's more or less the same picture, but divided into the single renewable sources. And now we'll show you just very quick one of the examples before Robin will show you his example. That's has been one of my projects, which is tenants electricity. It's called in English, which means more or less you have photovoltaic plants on a multi-flat house, and you're able to use that electricity right in the flats, right in the house, before it gets before it is fed into the grid. And the main bonus you get then is that you do not have to pay the grid fees. So you can save some money on the grid fees, and you can give that advantage also to the tenants in that house. And that's the main concept. It seems quite simple, but in the end it's quite complex to do the invoices every year, and yeah, how much has one flat used, how much photovoltaic electricity used. So that's quite complex, but yeah, it works out in the end now, but it's still, yeah, I think it really started really like in the last 2 years, that it really got popular now. And I also want to show you some pictures. That's during the construction phase. We built a project on 3 social housings in Pfaffenhofen. So we have combined now, it's more or less 3 of those houses, and we have combined 71 kilowatt peak in total. And we use that electricity to give it to up to 30 flats. But in Germany, you are not able to force someone to take your electricity for longer than 2 years. So it's quite hard for us to really, because we have to pay the plant for like 20 years, and we calculate it for 20 years. So we really have to make the tenants a really good offer, because they can choose on the free market where they want to get their electricity. So we have to make a really good offer, but we are able to make a good offer because we're saving the fees. So that's the main point here. And in the first project, we got 29 of the 30 tenants to join us and to get the electricity from us. So that was quite successful. And yeah, that was the opening. You can see Andreas on the right there as well. And the mayor was there as well, just a little bit of a show picture as a press release. And what was very important during the project is also cooperation again. And there you can see on the left side the municipal utilities. On the right side, it's kind of a public building company. And on the bottom, you can see the city or the city administration itself. And every single one of them had really to communicate, and they also had to, push the project. They all needed the will to really do it, because the building administration, they were like building the houses. We built the photovoltaic system. The city administration also said, okay, this is our land. We need photovoltaic on that one. So it was really a cooperation between all of those actors. And of course, even more, but those are just like the publicly owned ones. And that's it from my side. Robin, the stage is yours. You can talk about the next project.
Well, now it's gone. I'll get back to the slides actually. Are you controlling the slides, isn't it? So I just need to get back to the last slide. Okay, thanks. Another up. Here we go. Yeah, last but not least, it's my turn now. First of all, to my person maybe, or to me, my name is Robin Jacek, and I'm the project leader of our district heating and combined heat and power project at municipal utility Pfaffenhofen. And yeah, there are several other projects I'm also busy with, and I will show you one of them right now. But first of all, let's go to our basically our favorite picture. It's again this one, but I think it shows quite good our concept actually, our concept to get to our 100% renewable target basically. So what we do is actually, or a specific target is to connect or to interconnect the sectors. That means it's mobility, it's the electric grid, it's also the gas grid regarding storing energy, but it's also about, and that's actually what's written in the title there, and also what Andreas also said. It's also about the independency of electricity and gas imports. Well, actually, it's quite obvious that it's especially currently a quite important topic. When we concern the actual global energy crisis as well. So that's also covered with that concept, basically. So what we're going to do is that we design plants for producing renewable gas. That's our idea to actually store energy, electrical energy, into gas when we transfer it into gas, and combine that again with a combined heat and power system to get back the electricity out of the gas when we basically need it again. Right. So therefore we started our power to gas project called Infinity One. Quite epic name, if you're asking me, but it fits. And I will tell you something, a few technical details, but not too deep, about that project actually. So everything starts with renewable power. So actually renewable power which is left basically. So when there's renewable power available, we feed it into our electrolyzer. So that's actually the first step. The electrolyzer splits water into the components, so into oxygen and hydrogen. The hydrogen goes further to our methanation plant, and for the operation plant, or for the methanation plant to be able to operate, there is another component necessary, and that one is actually the CO2. But where do we get the CO2 from? It's basically from our treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant, ours. And there is actually obviously some salvage gas, so biogas in the end, produced. There's a part of it, it's methane already, and the other part is CO2. It's about 40% CO2, and that CO2 we're going to use in the methanation plant. So we use basically our hydrogen and the CO2 in the methanation. What happens afterwards is that we turn all of the gas into basically pure methane, which is more or less also natural gas. So it's the same ingredients somehow. So that makes it possible to lead this product gas, this methane, just straight into the gas grid. And that's actually the important thing about it, that it's not necessary to, turn it into something else, whatever. We can just bring it into the grid and store it, basically, store the energy in the gas grid itself. Another step we go for is that we basically use every single, also the waste products, basically. The waste products are at first oxygen, exactly. And there's also quite a lot of heat coming out of that process. But those waste products can be quite easily used in our treatment plant. And that's what we do. So we lead the oxygen and also the heat into the process of our wastewater treatment plant. And get additional benefit out of it on the ecological side and also on the economical side as well. So that's the basic idea of our power-to-gas project. Just for you to have an idea about the potential of it, here you're going to see some figures. So like I said, it's 60 or roughly 60% of the, here we go, So that's basically the sewage gas. That's the gas which comes out of the wastewater treatment plant. So it's like 60% methane already, and it's 40% CO2. And like I said, what we're going to do, we make it to 100% methane. So it's that 40% we use and, level up somehow. Exactly. And what I said as well, there's also oxygen and heat, and those are the amounts of it actually. So for you to get an idea what we can do with it, for instance, regarding mobility, there would it be possible when we would use this amount of methane, it would be possible for, in this case, an Audi A5 g-tron could reach a distance of 9 million kilometers with that amount of gas. Or another example is a city bus could also reach until like 3.2 million kilometers. But what we actually do is, like I said, more use it with our in our CHPs or in CHPs in general to get back power, actually, electrical power. So, the actual idea is then when there's more electrical power in the grid than necessary, we store it with gas or with turning it into gas. And when there's power again needed, we turn it again into electricity. And that's what we can do with the CHP plant. Exactly. And yeah, just to have an idea about the heating, I mean, it's also quite obvious that it's especially used, or gas is especially used for heating. So if you would go for that, that would be the amount you can get out of it. But for you to understand it a bit better somehow, that would mean that you can provide like 700 houses with heating. So that's basically the capacity or the potential we have with in this project or with this system. So just a few words to the current status. There are some components already at the on-site and will be built, or some other components will arrive there soon as well. And we're going to start actually in July to build up the plant. And we are hoping, or due to the current schedule, we can be operational, or first stage operational, this year already. So we need another year to test a bit. It's more or less to get it done for the operational process on the longer run. But that's actually the first period when we go into operational mode somehow. Exactly. And yeah, the other parts, I mean, it's also a approval necessary, approval process. It's just also done right now. We also finished it, so we actually more or less good to go in July. Just a few words to our next steps. Like I said, it's from our point of view quite sensible to use it combined with CHPs. So to turn it back to electricity again when it's needed. And in our district heating networks, that's an example. We have another one as well. We use CHPs in any ways. And our plan is that's what we focus on, is that we use our regional produced biogas, the one out of the power to gas plant, to feed it basically into our CHPs and basically use biogas, 100% biogas produced regionally in our district heating networks. And additionally, we support the power grid as well, as we work as a storage somehow to store gas and turn it into power, into electrical power again, depending on how or when it's actually needed. So that's actually our next step we aiming for. Well, yeah, that's the project I wanted to show to you actually. And I'm done with it. Thank you. Whenever there are some questions, feel free to ask. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right.
E visto che è stato chiamato il coffee break, facciamo la pausa caffè e poi riprendiamo fra 10 minuti.
Let's have the coffee break now. Thank you.
Matteo Zulianello
is the next keynote speaker. Is going to talk us about the state of the art of his research about the energy system, and I suppose in the view of the changes of the law about standards as well. The floor is yours, Mrs. Zulianello. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'll try to share my screen right now. Can you see it? Okay. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. So who are we? RSE is a research center, an Italian research center. We are part of the Minister for Economy and Finances. So we respond to these ministries and also to the energy regulatory authority. The activities that we carry out are activities that support the regulatory and legislative authority. As to energy, we started working on the topic at the very beginning of 2019, actually the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, when at an EU level, we were asked to support the Ministry of Economic Development to support renewable energy communities in Italy and within the Lega framework. Therefore, to do so, we focused during the past 3 years, 2019, 2021, we focused on how to support some case studies that we selected. 9 of them had to do with collective self-consumption and 6 renewable energy communities. We supported them starting from a situation where we had directives and guidelines, but we did not have a national transposition of EU directives that could help us support these initiatives. Therefore, these projects were valuable in giving us a direction towards the experimentation and study of a whole series of dynamics. Over the past year, we performed a mapping activity. We tried to produce a map, and then I'll show you how we did that, a map of what happened after 2020, when we early transposed the directive, and therefore we introduced some supportive mechanism for as much as the collective self-consumption is concerned. In the last legislative decree on renewable energies, RSE receives the mandate to carry out analyses to understand what the impact of market penetration in Italy of collective self-consumption Italian communities is, to understand what their impact is, as a matter of fact. More recently, when I give presentations, I usually start from this very slide that I'm showing you. In one of my previous presentations, we showed some videos and photos with a deserted city, and on the other hand, a city that was impacted by a flood. I remember a German speaker showing those pictures. My presentation is a bit different, but I do want to draw the same conclusions, come to the same conclusions. We want to avoid those situations. So we had targets to avoid the risks that were previously mentioned by other keynote speakers, to foster the transition from fossil fuels to a new system where renewable energies are more and more important. On the left, you can see the different the objectives and different directions and trends that, as you can see, show an upward trend of solar and wind power from today and up until 2030. This trend will have to be reviewed in the view of the transposition of other measures. So how can we deliver, how can we transition from this situation we have now, to the situation where both wind and solar energies will be more and more important? We will do it by carrying out measures and by using tools, by using price stabilization mechanisms. Over the past year, we realized that stable prices are of utmost importance. Of course, it is important for both citizens and for businesses. That was the first topic. The second topic concerns authorizations and licenses, approvals. So where possible, we need to have a simplified pathway in order for us to create this plant, to build these plants. This has to do with revamping and repowering of existing plants as well. The possibility to reach the goals that this chart shows will have to entail the fact that existing plants will be or won't be working in the near future any longer. We can't miss the opportunity to revamp and repower existing plants that can actually be used in the future. We need these national objectives to be encompassed and embraced also at a regional level. I know there is a representative of the Emilia-Romagna region, and therefore that keynote speaker will tell us about this very topic. Last but not least, we just mentioned policy, so we also need new stakeholders engaging in the market and the production of energy from renewable sources. We realized that by engaging just with industrial stakeholders, these objectives can't be fulfilled. Therefore, we have to include mechanisms in order to encourage participation, local participation, whether they are public administrations, SMEs, or private citizens, who usually do not participate in the energy market, or they do not in an active way. Here you can see a definition of renewable energy communities and collective self-consumption community. They stem from two EU directives, which you can see here, the RED2 and the IEM directive. They introduce definitions that have to do with the participation of end users in the energy market. They tell us two main things. First of all, the schemes of collective self-consumption and renewable energy communities are two different, very different concepts. At a European level, we thought that each one of us can do or can take individual actions, and that might be an active user or citizen to have their own solar or photovoltaic system in their own villa, for example, or they can decide to purchase energy from renewable sources, have an electric car, and so on and so forth. All these activities have to do with everybody. So everybody stands at the very bottom of this triangle. That's something that everybody can do. So everybody can do their fair share in order to actively participate. Then at the very middle of this triangle, the EU tells us that we don't just have to take these actions individually, but also collectively, do them all together. I'm guessing that many of you live in a block of buildings. So if up until 2020, photovoltaic systems and plants that were installed on buildings' roofs entailed the use of energy within that family or apartment, with this collective use, everybody living in that block of buildings can benefit from that energy. So it's not a matter of an individual, but a community. Therefore, this gives us a bigger picture and a wider concept, the concept of communities that was mentioned earlier in the morning. When we talk about energy communities, we focus on the word energy and we neglect the word community. Energy communities are established to meet needs that are detected by the citizens themselves. Needs that can be environmental, socio-economic needs, but also financial needs. Therefore, we do need to take actions at a community level. Today, we do have collective self-consumption schemes and renewable energy communities in Italy. In 2020, we partially and early transposed directive on renewable energies that, thanks to a rare resolution and the ministerial decree in September 2020, in December 2020, we started our, we applied on the GSE portal for the renewable energy community that was established in Italy. We were a bit late for as much as the general national transposition was concerned, but we did that in order for us to start some experimentations so that we could complete the path of the national transposition of both directives, considering what we did in 2020 and 2021. In December 2021, we published and introduced two legislative decrees, 210 and 199, telling us that we are transitioning from the early transposition rules. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. Incentives for community for energy, for renewable energy communities, sorry, transitioning from base to plants up to 1 megawatt. A transition from a support to small energy communities to support a small neighborhood or a street or maximum of 100 houses, up to different hundreds of houses, and therefore there lies the opportunities to support real energy communities. We're still missing 2 pieces of this puzzle, but still we're getting there. We're still waiting for an update of the ARERA resolution, which will tell us what the members of the community will have to pay. And also we're waiting for another measure by the MISE to get to know what the new incentives will be. Incentives is fundamental just as much as regulations are, because transitioning from 200 kilowatts to 1 megawatt, we will support not just photovoltaic plants, but also new plants. So there will lies brand new opportunities. Very briefly, I would like to tell you what's happened for as much as REC is concerned over the past 3 years. We supported some pilot projects that applied for it before the early national transposition. Some of them are mainly located in the Alp area, also because our main aim was that of developing a community. Therefore, these areas greatly benefited from these projects, but there are also other areas that are committed to the management of the local grid, aimed at providing innovative services to their citizens. We used a shared methodology of both analysis and evaluation by defining scenarios and KPIs. We carried out an energy and territorial analysis to get to understand the current situation in terms of energy, and also to understand what kind of projects we could have put forward, and also to understand what the stakeholders could have been. 2 stakeholders weren't able to give us the data for as much as the electrical substation is concerned, but that was mainly the situation that was presented to us, the one that you are seeing on the slide. There was very low flexibility within these plants because many of them were hydropower plants. Therefore, we put forward some proposals and solutions, especially for as much as the CEDRS is concerned. We established a very small energy community that is in line with current standards, aimed at understanding how local stakeholders entailed in the production of energy could externally support the establishment of energy communities. The case of the Tirana municipality was pretty different, as you can see from this slide. There was a lot of opportunities. There were a lot of opportunities to expand the production. And therefore, we tried to act on a wider scale by taking advantage of existing incentives, carrying out a more complex analysis. As I was mentioning before, in 2021, we focused on a mapping activity. I would like to emphasize that since 2011, this is a map that you can see on our webpage, redscope.eu. I was saying since 2011, we knew what the main projects or actions that aimed at citizen participation were. And we knew that there were approximately 1 million citizens engaged or involved, and also many associations. Here you can see a wider picture of what was going on in Europe, especially how advanced Northern Europe is concerned, both in terms of energy, they're more advanced, but also in terms of cooperation. Anyway, in 2011, we already had some stakeholders that were involved, but the European objective by 2050 is that the initial 1 million of people would gradually grow to reach 264 million people who will be responsible for the production of their own electricity. In Italy, this was the starting point, basically, and together with the Lewis Business School, we started this mapping activity, emphasizing and highlighting those communities that were established thanks to the new laws and measures, without neglecting all the other communities that were already there. The energy cooperatives, the red ones are the RSC projects. In green, you can see the new cooperatives for green, positive energy, so on and so forth. There are different who had already started carrying out activities to involve and engage citizens. Our mapping tried to go beyond the collection of data and the building of a simple database. We tried to investigate into the local dynamics that would develop and the reasons why new energy communities would be established. Therefore, we engaged in dialogues together with the different stakeholders that were involved, and we identified 3 different clusters. I'll be quick on this part, sorry. The first cluster is led by public administration, where the public administration in a top-down way decides on the objectives, takes advantage of some resources that are there within the region or the municipality to take actions or develop programs to work on a building, for example. And these projects will create local benefits, and services are provided to the citizens. Therefore, the energy community is established, local people participate on top of the municipality, and there are a lot of benefits. These are needed to pay for local services, for example, the gym for the citizens of the community. The second cluster is a cluster that does not entail the participation of public administration. This is an image of the energy community in the eastern part of Naples, promoted by a local association that is in charge of the support of education and local families. So it has nothing to do with energy, actually, but together with Legambiente and Formazione per il Sud, 2 different associations, decided to harness and to seize the golden opportunity to improve the neighborhood and the area. So on the one hand, they were trying to meet an energy-related need, but the most important activity for them was that of engaging people, citizens, especially students, kids participating in the activities, and more generally, engaging families that are part of the community. Therefore, the first cluster is about public administration. The second one is mainly related to local associations, while the third one is an external stakeholder-based cluster that contribute to the development of something that is already there within the municipality. This is the case of BIC, what we call the community energy builders. Here you can get different stakeholders, for example, industrial stakeholders or other stakeholders that could bring competences to the municipality, or other associations that are mainly focused on citizens' engagement. So this is just a few examples that give a helping hand to local stakeholders who want to promote initiatives to the benefit of the community. This is a sort of trade-off. How much should stay within the municipality and how much should be purchased externally? The mapping activity was summarized within this book that I'm showing you. There you can see the different projects. There you will also find open matters that we will need to face in the next 3 years. These are basically the recent activities that we've just started that mainly have to do the impact, the growing of the communities, the need to measure impacts. There are a lot of public resources that we are investing in the involvement and engagement of these energy stakeholders, but also the need to measure how communities can grow. Going back to the very first chart that I showed you, I was telling you that those trends could be met only if everybody's chipping in, if every stakeholder is engaging stakeholders that are not participating now. Therefore, we do need, over the next 3 years, we need to understand how the big picture would change compared to what we did last year. That was all. Would just like to let you know about these 2 books, the one on the right and the one on the left. Thank you very much for your attention.
Grazie mille, è veramente
Thank you. It was an excellent speech, so congratulations. These 3 types of schemes can be very useful for all municipalities. Thank you very much, Mr. Zulianello. So I think we can go on with GSE, Marta Mango. I'd like to thank you for being here today. We have seen many novelties and many speeches about these, so I think your speech will be very interesting. So we will try to seize the opportunities that you will talk about. Thank you very much for inviting me. I would love to give you some certainties, but actually we're going through a difficult phase. There are many new laws at the moment. I represent the GSE, the Energy Service Managing Authority. We manage the qualification of energy communities that have access to the incentives, we have also another important role, that is to say, supporting public administration. We support local bodies, local authorities of our country in this challenge that we are living together. I also have a presentation, and I can tell you something about our role. We asked ourselves some questions, and we tried to provide answers together with the public administration. Why talking about self-consumption and how a public administration can do so? Certainly, there are many opportunities for the local authorities. The two different configurations that we can have now, the roles of a municipality and of the region, and then we try to draw a path according to our experiences. Now we are evaluating some examples of energy communities. Then there is the Vitulano Energy Community. It's the first one that was certified by the GSE authority. So why a public administration should talk about self-consumption, and why should they choose to become self-consumer? First of all, to reduce the cost of bills, generate revenue from the sale of energy, the surplus energy, then making the municipality even more sustainable and reduce the carbon footprint of the local body. Local authorities, to become self-consumers, must act in a certain way. They must assess the possible benefits of self-consumption, contextualizing the intervention in the programming documents. So considering the integration of the different kinds of interventions inside the projects, as Mr. Maltoni pointed out this morning. So it is important to have a certain level of integration in the ongoing projects. Then developing plans in the procurement contracts of carriers, also through concept. Then entrusting the realization of the intervention to someone else, and then maintaining the plans and monitoring their performance. Sometimes municipalities have a series of plans that we tend to forget because, as we said during the lunch break, there are new governments sometimes, and the new mayor doesn't have an idea of what the previous administration has done and doesn't know the performance of those plans. So we need to try and avoid this from happening, to prevent this from happening in the future. So this is a fundamental element. The energy community wants us to do it so that we can solve the problem. So local communities, we can read in the law all the benefits. They are environmental, economic, and social benefits. We saw that energy communities are created for economic reasons, but it's also a social need. We saw the examples of San Giovanni Antenuccio and Naples, so these are very important examples of this. Two possible configurations, as I said. So we are going through a transition phase now in terms of laws. We are waiting for the RED II legislation. We really hope that it will be published soon, but I don't want to give you any specific dates because I don't know when it will be published. Today we have two possibilities, energy communities and self-consumer groups. As my colleague said from RSE, today energy communities are legal entities, they are independent. Installations are 200 kilowatt maximum. The perimeter is linked to the second transformer room or substation. 110 euros per megawatt of shared energy. Groups of self-consumers, in this case the perimeter is the block of flats, and obviously apart from economic, social and environmental benefits, we also have another benefit in terms of in economic terms of 100 megawatt, 110 euros per megawatt. Many entities can take part in the community. The installation can have 1 megawatt of power. Here we're talking about the primary transformer room. The perimeter is different because the POD codes can be owned by just one person. So the contributions are more or less the same. Then we have two other possibilities to share energy. Citizen energy communities, the perimeter is the market area, and the PPA, that is to say some agreements, purchasing agreements related to renewable sources. So they are very important tools. So what is the competence of local authorities? We wanted to represent the region and the local authority itself. So the region plays a pivotal role, and I'm very happy that there is a representative of the Emilia-Romagna region who will talk about their most recent innovations. So the region needs to contribute to achieving the goal of energy production from renewable sources. There is a new regional law about this, so obviously the region is the key player to contribute to this project and pathway. So the region can create a network on the territory and can also gather all the players that can be users but also prosumers inside the community. And also the region is expected to have another role, that is to say financing development policies, developing new plans and developing the use of shared energy. So we are next to the region to support them in this process, especially to support local authorities to implement this process and to define the rules of co-financing together with other national bodies, not only the GSE. And obviously we cooperate so that energy is not produced by only a few people or entities. So we need to save energy, we need to valorize the sources that are local, we need to reduce our carbon footprint and to valorize our territory. And sharing energy can be a way to have the repopulation of certain areas that were suffering from this phenomenon. So it's important to raise awareness of sustainability among citizens. So today we saw many best practices about this. So what's the role of the municipality inside a community? It can be a promoter of the community. So the municipality can actually be an entity that aggregates the different players and promotes the community, but could also be simply a member of the community. So the municipality can take part in communities created by private citizens, or it can make available its assets, for example, available areas and spaces. And there are a lot of novelties in this field. I won't talk about them today, but we are currently working with the region and the local authorities alike to define the suitable areas to develop new photovoltaic plants. So the municipality can play a role in this. So the municipality can make its assets available to the community because the municipality owns certain facilities and spaces. So the municipality can play an important role, and the majority of the requests that we received at GSE are presented by the municipality. So the municipality can aggregate different players, and it plays a stimulating role. It can support the people and the entities who want to apply for this. And as Mr. Martoni said, this is linked to the city planning sector too. We used to work mainly with the construction sector, but now the city planning sector is very important too. So it can be a consumer or a producer at the same time, but it can also be an entity that can make available certain spaces. So together with the municipalities that we are supporting, we are trying to define a plan to create an energy community, starting from the planning phase, going towards the designing phase of the project, and then we have the realization of the project. So here you can see some examples. There are some best practices from the people who have already achieved these goals, and the following slides are a little bit too detailed. We tried to give answers to the questions that we were asked. So the players involved in the process are the municipal council, the executive council, the administration, other organizations and facilities like technical partners, etc. So there are many aspects to deal with, both in the monitoring phase and in the planning phase. So I won't go through all the slides. I'll leave you with the presentation so that we can hear the other presentations from my colleagues. So for the planning phase, it is important to identify the objectives and the goals of the project, finding the right economic resources and the governance, removing the barriers that are unintentional, and all the tools that are useful to remove these barriers. Then choosing a technical partner is also important. All the communities that have applied to be recognized had a technical partner that was part of a university, for example, the University of Bologna, of Turin. So the technical partner is fundamental to start this kind of project. And then a dialogue with the energy or grid operator is very important too. It is important to identify the POD codes, and we need to know the right information. So communicating with the grid operator is fundamental. Then defining an organization proposal for the community is also important. Together with all the other players, we will try to give you some models to manage the community. Then opening and promoting the initiative on the territory, then quantifying the consumption, quantifying the needed power, and defining the legal context. So certainly it is important to assess what kind of entity is the most suitable for achieving the objectives of the administration. Then building legally the community, entrusting the realization to third parties, then applying to the GSE to get the incentives and the contribution for the energy management process, and then managing financial flows and managing also the tax requirements. Also, it is important to maintain the plans. In the last slide, here you can see my contacts, because we are at your disposal to talk about energy communities, and we're very happy to support you in this path. We will try to do this with all the other involved players. So thank you very much for the speeches that we heard earlier, but also for what we will do together in the future. Thank you.
Grazie, dottoressa Marta
Thank
Mango.
you very much, Mrs. Mango, who not just today, but also in the past has been supporting us in our relationship with the GSE, not just for that, but also for her presentation. Very interesting one, and you can rest assured we'll share your PowerPoint presentation to anybody who asks for it. Thank you. Moving on the agenda, I'd like to call on stage Mr. Branchetti, who's representing Enea, to update us on their research and the state of art for as much as renewable energy communities and renewable energy are concerned. Thank you. I am Samuele Branchetti and I'm a researcher at Enea, the core technology lab of the Bologna Research Center. I'd like to thank the organizers for their invitation. We've been working on these topics for a lot of time. A few words on the laboratory I work for. That is part of the Smart Energy Division of the Technology and Renewable Energy Department. We've been carrying out research. Historically, we've been working on data, exchange of data, management data, and more recently on energy-related data applied onto energy communities. I won't delve into the different research lines. I will just mention the projects we are involved in. The COME-RES, Horizon 2020, the GIGO project, the electric system research, and self-user, that is a regional project. I will just talk to you about a few slides out of the many slides that are prepared, and I will mainly focus on the main topics or the open topics, matters that are open for debate and discussion. Energy communities, you've talked about that. So you also mentioned the clean energy package promoted by the EU, the different energy community configurations that were mentioned, we mainly focused on the renewable energy community or collective self-consumption, or historically direct self-consumption starting from one's own plants or system on one's own house. Renewable energy communities are pivotal and important because they can unleash new investments, they can lead to energy production, and in the future, they can also lead to a change in the user. What's the objective there? You mentioned that to align renewable energy production with consumption, because we don't always consume when we produce, and that's a big issue. So how can we face that? From our standpoint, it is important to start from the data and its analysis. Even the analysis of single households or housing units, also to understand what kind of information we need and if the data is useful to the user. And then based on the data, depending on the data, we have to adjust our projects so that they can reflect and mirror the reality. And then also how to guarantee incentives that stems from sharing or shared energy or collective self-consumption. Let's start from data. First of all, for us, data are the consumption trends. Power corresponds to energy consumption in kilowatts hour. For as much as households are concerned, we know that consumption is very low at night. They start increasing during the morning, then they go up and down, and then they go up during the afternoon, and a peak is reached during the late afternoon and evening. This is a pattern that we see everywhere. This is the average of the day that you can see, average our daily load curve. For as much as offices are concerned, there is a peak during the morning, then a fall during lunch break, and then another increase. That's for as much as the tertiary sector is concerned. There are companies, just like the one that you can see represented on the top left hand of the slide, whose consumption are standard, steady. And then other companies that have very different trends. You can see this from the picture. Every company can have a consumption that is very different from another company's consumption. These are the data we work on. This can be connected to other information, for example, the data of presence or spaces that are used. You know that more people are there in a place, and therefore the higher would energy consumption be. We can also work on energy data analysis by clustering, by algorithm that are part of the so-called machine learning. These are 365 load curves of a building of many offices of the tertiary sector, and the red lines that you can see overlapping. The scheme on the right is not really representative because there is an average of different days that can be very different one from the other. Therefore, we need to detect those days where there is no much cargo and days with medium, maximum, and minimum cargo. The maximum cargo days are the ones in August. Why so? Because of air conditioning. Therefore, this is the kind of information, the kind of data that we need. This is important. Yet another example is this one. We analyzed, for as much as houses are concerned, we analyzed what happened during the lockdown period of time. 2020 lockdown, this is what we called an unplanned lab, because it was a very extreme situation. We hope it won't have happen again. But it allowed us to analyze an energy situation that was very extreme, because no one would go out, no one would ever leave the houses, which is stay home and work there. This is the situation representing March to May 2020. Therefore, consumption is higher, and it is high during the different days. Consumption was higher by 50%. Of course, it decreased for as much as the tertiary sector is concerned. These sets of information are a starting point. Then we apply models to this information to represent reality. The energy community specifically, then we have models for photovoltaic energy or shared energy and so on and so forth. We always talk about load curves, but also the production curves, the red ones from photovoltaic sources. This is a simulation starting from real data. We carried it out by imagining that that plant, that photovoltaic plant, would produce just as much as it is consumed by the people. We also know that in this condition, we can self-consume only 30–35% of the produced energy. These percentages are higher on the tertiary sector because the tertiary sector consumption is concentrated during the day, while in the houses it is concentrated during the evening. So starting from these curves, we can perform evaluations and analysis on self-consumption rate and self-sufficiency rate, because if we increase the percentage of energy that we self-produce and that I can self-consume, then I have a specific rate. And also a rate that I can compare to my needs. There's a point where these two different lines meet, and that is that 30–35% that I've just mentioned. Or if we have energy storage, we can reach 70–75% for as much as self-consumption is concerned. We can improve the situation with energy communities. Here we have different situations, different contexts, residential, tertiary, and industry. Let's take a look at their own self-consumption networks or grids. And if we put it all together, we have something like this. What happens if we put them all together? That the exceeding rate can be used by other people, by others. And therefore, self-consumption increases. In this case, it increases by 23%. Then if we also take into consideration the households that are just consuming but not producing, self-consumption increases to reach 66%. And from all of this, we can receive incentives from GSE. And I'm coming to the conclusion. Energy communities receive incentives, not the individuals. So how do we split it among the different citizens? There's no binding rule by the authority. Each one can decide to distribute it according to their own needs. We took into consideration different scenarios. Some of them were produced by the Polytechnic University of Turin for Enea under the JECO project. Others were produced by ours. The aim was that of understanding what the mechanism of splitting these incentives could be. Our vision, the vision of Enea over the past few years, was focused on different aspects from the policies, technologies, business models. together with you, I wanted to focus on more technical data, but it is from there that we are creating tools. Reckon, I'm just going to mention them to use for technical planning, DOMUS for the residential management, crews to monitor the trend of energy communities. We hope that these tools, some of them are ready, others are a bit work in progress. We hope that they can be useful. You have my contact details in the slide. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Grazie mille per l'intervento.
Thank you very much for your very interesting speech. It will be useful for many of us. Without much further ado, I would like to invite the representative of the Emilia-Romagna region, Ms. Letizia Zavatti. A few days ago, we saw a new law in terms of energy communities, so we are all very curious to know something more about it. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Maltoni for inviting us for this wonderful day that was rich in important insights, and the region appreciates this. The Emilia-Romagna region, a few days ago, approved the regional law number 5 of 2022 for self-consumption groups and energy communities. This law was approved unanimously, and I think that this is an important aspect. This measure is shared by all the political forces, so there is a strong joint will to start these projects and go in this direction. I'll keep my remarks very short, and I'll try to tell you something about this new law, what are its objectives, the support measures, and also the hurdles, the obstacles that are hindering this implementation process. So this is not only due to the region, but also they are at a national level and also European level. For example, in terms of access to European funds. So the first aspect I'd like to highlight is something that has already been delved into by my colleagues. So I just want to focus on the objectives. For example, the fight against climate change, or the topic of energy independence. Obviously, this is very important, especially today, much like the aspects linked to energy poverty and the possibility to achieve the goals of renewable energy promotion and energy transition. So, as you all know, the Emilia-Romagna region set out very ambitious goals from this point of view, because we're talking about 100% renewable energies for the Pact for Work and Climate that was signed by many stakeholders on the territory. So this objective by 2035 is very challenging, and carbon neutrality by 2050 is also very challenging. So the objectives are quite ambitious. The topic of energy communities and self-consumption groups is one of the ingredients that can contribute to achieving these goals, much like many other measures that we can find inside the implementation plan, the 3-year implementation plan of the regional energy plan from 2022 to 2024. So the strategic document, the preliminary strategic document was approved. So we can say that this law is a very important part of a greater operation. So inside the regional energy plan, energy communities and self-consumer groups are very important factors. Inside the 3-year implementation plan, we're talking about a structural innovative reform. So maximizing self-consumption, reducing the consumption itself, and supporting the participation of citizens and consumers. So we're talking about aggregation and collaboration topics. And certainly there are some obstacles in this case. These obstacles are slowing us down, not only in the energy sector. So let's talk about the support measures that are the core of our role, one of the functions of the region. So these support measures are the result of a very rich process, a great path involving the stakeholders during the preliminary phase for the analysis of the project. And so we saw many different stakeholders, companies, consumer associations, environmental associations, ANCI as well, municipalities and local authorities. So many different stakeholders that made a lot of efforts in this. And so this is the result of a joint work with all the different political parties. So before talking about the details of the contribution measures, I'd like to add one thing. The support measures will have to be accompanied by other support measures at a national level. For example, the decree number 190 of 2021 for the transposition of the RED II directive. This concerns shared energy in terms of renewable energies and self-consumption groups. So these regional measures must go hand in hand with the national measures. And the same goes for all the measures that were implemented thanks to the National Resilience and Recovery Plan at a national level. We're talking about more than 60 million euros for the development of energy communities and groups of self-consumption for municipalities that have less than 5,000 inhabitants. And then we will talk about the role of local authorities. As we said earlier, it's fundamental. As for the resources, we talked about the PNRR funds. We will need to understand the modes of application of these funds. As for the region, also thanks to this first law, we earmarked 2,000 euros for the first year, and then we will have other resources for 2023, 200,000 euros in particular. And also the structural resources of the ERDF are important as well. We're talking about 12 million euros in particular. So we have the basis on which to work to start implementing these projects in a tangible way. So the intention of the region is to act vertically so that we can create these communities in a tangible way. Let's move on to the recipients of these support measures of the region, for example, energy communities and self-consumers, especially collective self-consumer groups. This is very important for the preliminary stage of the project, so the first part of the project, but also afterwards when we are implementing the technologies. On the other hand, we saw that there were some difficulties in the first part of the project, so there are also some support measures, both for public and private actors. And I'm thinking of agencies for the energy sector, municipalities, private associations, local authorities, and professional or trade associations. So all these players can play an important role to link the institutions and citizens. So there are some resources to create some information and communication initiatives to involve the citizens. As for local authorities, we also need to strengthen the internal skills and professional skills inside the offices, because this is required in the preliminary stage. The knowledge about these aspects, and obviously because these aspects are very complex, so this is a very important stage. But there is another important aspect that I'd like to highlight. Local authorities can cooperate with the region to stipulate new contracts and agreements with ANCI and other players to identify best practices and models. It is important to identify turnkey solutions and measures. Obviously, this is very complex, so we will try to do that in the future. Apart from these general forms of support, especially for renewable energy communities and self-consumer groups, there are also other contributions for specific energy communities and collective self-consumer groups. We're talking about players that have a great impact at a local level, So the configurations that the region considered very important are 5. One of these categories is about collective self-consumer groups and the disadvantaged categories of people. This is important to fight these kinds of problems as well. Then configurations composed of voluntary sector players and social players. Then configurations related to players living in the mountains or in other special areas. And this is a topic of the PNRR as well, especially for municipalities that have less than 5,000 inhabitants. Then the 4th category is the category for configurations that are related to solidarity projects, also in collaboration with local authorities and the players of the voluntary sector. There will always be some calls for proposals, of course, and last but not least, we've already talked about this topic with the presentations of FMI and the municipality of Forlì, there is another category of energy communities where there are local authorities that approved strategic plans for adaptation and mitigation of climate change. We know that the municipality of Forlì is about to approve the SECAP of the municipality, so this is certainly an important aspect to take into consideration. Sorry. In our opinion, one of the laws that were very important for the Emilia-Romagna region is the law that says that local authorities count the spaces and facilities that can be made available to certain players, even if the municipality doesn't use them. So it is important to identify the suitable areas. So this is usually done by the regions according to specific criteria, national criteria, but this is a stimulus for local authorities to start working on the territory to understand precisely what the suitable areas are where we can establish new projects and have experiences like we saw earlier, for example, the parking lot near the hospital in Forlì. One last point, the models to encourage energy communities and particular innovative projects at a regional level for the innovation projects, according to Law 14 of 2014, there is a category for renewable energy sources communities. So this is to support the creation of these communities. In order to ensure the effective implementation of the law, a registry for renewable energy communities was created. It's not another obligation for those who create a community, but it's a way to collect information that is necessary to change the right things so that the region can actually improve the situation and the law. And it's a tool to see the initiatives that are created on the territory. Here we're talking about the data concerning the energy community, the position, the location of the community, and all the requirements. And to simplify things, it was important to do another thing. The data that will be collected inside the national platforms about self-consumption groups and energy communities will work together so that we can have an appropriate data collection. The analysis of these data will be very important to see the best practices, to identify the best practices and the best models. There will be a permanent technical table that will carry out analysis about this. RSE and other players like ANCI, UPI, ENEA, regional clusters will play a pivotal role in this. So this is to support all the entities that need help in this field. We will start the process to implement this law from contribution, financial tools, to the organization of training sessions. But obviously there are still some obstacles. For example, the need to wait for the new laws and the new decrees. For example, decree number 199 of 2021. And in this way, the region will be able to intervene in the best way to publish new calls for proposals. And we will then start with the support activity itself. We also need the approval of the European Commission for the structural funds. We're waiting for authorizations, but I think that we will get them very soon. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Zavati, for your very comprehensive presentation. Thank you very much. Wonderful speech. I know you're tired, we're all tired. It is time to draw some conclusions. So today's been very interesting to me. ARENA is an association just like FMI that is focused on supporting and fostering agencies during their activities. Before giving the floor to someone else, some housekeeping, and I would like also to share some thoughts with you. Thanks to this European project, we activated and opened the Energy Office. There is an email. You can make appointments. It's Energia at FMI. There you can get information on energy communities. I'd also like to thank all our guests and keynote speakers who were going to ask questions about their experience, and I'm sure that also technicians and professionals can ask questions to them. I think that this will be an important investment to transform our communities and the chance to generate and create new employment, both in terms of businesses, investments, but also for as much as freelancers are concerned. So to speak, the Emilia-Romagna representatives told me that in order to activate and start these projects, we need startups, we need competencies, startups to make procedures and information available to everybody so that everybody can operate, both public and private stakeholders. We like to think that we are also supporters of this development process to help and support this energy transition that entails a lot. What we just mentioned, investment, professional activities, and high-skilled professional activity. Therefore, this is important, and we would like to do our fair share through the Energy Help Desk or office to support this virtuous support. And now I'd like to give the floor to the director of the Agency for Energy and Sustainable Development. It is an energy under which many agencies gathered. Together with them, we are performing different activities, but I'm sure she will tell us all about it. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you all. Very interesting keynote speakers, very interesting presentations for us, especially for what you said about energy. Mr. Maltoni mentioned them, and these initiatives are very important for the different agencies just like us. It is important to support stakeholders towards the neutrality, carbon neutrality. Energy communities are pivotal as well, and you mentioned that skills and competencies are needed to deliver. I know that you've been making a lot of efforts, therefore I would just like to tell you about our efforts, this other initiative by FMI, since they are an active part of our national network. It is a very brave choice from that part. Mr. Montoni has been a great, it's been a pillar for us because he, with his competencies and skills, helps us, both the National Assembly and also engaging with governing government bodies so that we can work together. Now I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what I'll be telling you about. This is an event that will take place next week in Rome at the GSE headquarters. I know that a representative from the GSE was there with you, and I'd like to thank them as well, Marta Mango and all the other colleagues. That event will be dedicated to energy communities. We'll try to delve into the communities just like it was done today, especially talking about 5 experiences. The experience of the municipality that Mrs. Mango told you about. It was the very first certified, the first GSE certified community, but also will tell people about how the experiences that can be harnessed and can be used to understand what the current situation is. The mayors of those communities will be there, and they will talk about issues and problems that were sorted out. This is because we want to show that we are going to stand by the side of everybody who wants to support energy communities. We want to help them also from an administrative point of view, for everybody to understand what the process is, what the road to go down is. You heard about the 3 different directions that were mentioned by Mr. Zulianello, the 3 different clusters. So we want to clarify that too. This is our contribution. This is us doing our fair share. I'd like to conclude by thanking Mr. Mattoni, because being part of the network is an honor, but also a duty. We adamantly believe in what we're doing. Here you hosted a representative of the region and institutions, and same goes for the events in Rome. Minister Germini will be with us to show that this is a huge work, just like the work that was carried out by the Emilia-Romagna region. There's a lot we can do as a network, but we're able to do that because each single agency is working very hard and is contributing. And that's why I wanted to thank all of you and Mr. Martoni, because it's always been there for us. And when he's there for us, he really is really committed. He understood what the value of the network is, and is trying to go even beyond the network to meet the needs and to deliver. Mr. Martoni will be with us on the occasion on another event, and will be by our side so that we can harness the PNRR, and therefore I'd like to thank him not just for his work but also for his great passion. Thank you. Thank you very much for your short speech. Now, I would just like to thank Anci. Mr. Rossi unfortunately couldn't make it to be here with us due to personal commitments, but he sent us a video, therefore we can just send it to you so you can watch it. We will send it to you together with the other PowerPoint presentations that you will receive. I'd like to thank him on behalf of all of us. Unfortunately, couldn't make it to be with us due to personal commitment, but still I would like to thank him for this contribution. I'd also like to thank all of you for having been here with us today. Our energy portal is active, and if you need anything, we'll be there for you. Thank you for your patience, for being here with us, for the different speeches by the keynote speakers. Thank you. Have a lovely evening.